All right, the program that we're fixing to see here tonight, this is the last part of September. Seems like it's about the 29th, maybe the 30th of September. We're basically within 24 hours of the government doing what the government's going to do in regards toward shutting down. But for the climate deniers out there, those that are still leaning on the fact that the environment is not changing, just within the past 72 hours or a little more, the governor of the state of Louisiana down in New Orleans, the mayor, declared New Orleans a state of an emergency with about 1 million people down there. The Mississippi River getting so low that it's backing up pertaining to the salt water coming out of the Gulf. They run into this same problem last year, and the Corps of Engineers built all kinds of underwater, basically dams or breaches to be able to stop that, and it's not stopping it because the river, once the Mississippi River gets so low and the flow of it, the energy flow gets so weak, then basically the salt water comes in, and of course it gets into the Aquador freshwater system that can go up underneath the ground, and the next thing you know, it will affect people's water drinking problems in New Orleans. You keep in mind, New Orleans isn't like Denver, Colorado. Denver, Colorado is a mile above the sea level. New Orleans is actually below the sea level. They're below the sea level, I think, about 30 or 40 feet, something like that. And they're really living in an environment of doom pertaining to how the waters continue to keep rising and rising and rising. I mean, the Corps of Engineers, they can keep building more and more levees and more levees, but eventually the levees ain't going to work once the water gets up so high. And this is one of the problems that you're fixing to see right now. The mayor in New York has declared a state of an emergency pertaining to what they're encountering pertaining to once more imbalances pertaining to the weather, of it either being entirely too dry or entirely too wet. Please listen.
Good evening and welcome. As we come on the air, a nightmare commute home is underway here in the nation's biggest metropolitan area, virtually paralyzed today by flooding rains. New York City under a state of emergency tonight with 23 million people under flood watches across New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. New York's governor saying this is not an ordinary rainfall.
Now, we went from 1 million people in New Orleans of their mayor declaring a state of an emergency because of not enough rain, versus this mayor that's declared a state of an emergency on how many millions did they say?
Calling.
Hang on. Let's back up just a little bit. Hold it right there. 23 million.
Jersey and Connecticut. New York's governor.
We went from 1 million to 23 million of people that's in dire right now, in peril, pertaining to the forces of nature. And then you can go to another continent on the other side of the world, and people are disrupting over there. I seen a while ago where Sweden, of all places, is having a crime problem over there, a crime spree problem, because of basically similar situations over here of the rich and the powerful getting richer and powerfuler, while the working class and the poor class continue to keep getting poor and keep having to pay out all the money on the taxes. So it's an imbalance in not only the forces of nature, but it's an imbalance in other areas, not just here in America, but all over the world.
Governor saying this is not an ordinary rainfall, calling it historic. Numerous cars have been stranded on flooded urban streets and roads, some drivers in need of rescue. Subways and suburban rail trains stopped after water flooded tracks, and flight disruptions at the region's 3 major airports rippling across the country tonight. Up to 8 inches of rain have fallen in the New York area since last night, some areas bracing for double-digit rainfall amounts before it's all over. Stephanie Goss starts us off from Brooklyn tonight. How serious was the flooding flooding there, Steph.
Lester, it rained so hard, so fast, this water had nowhere to go. 2 to 3 months worth in a single day, and there were places here in Brooklyn where it almost rained 3 inches in an hour. And while it has let up a little bit, the damage is done. When the rain started coming down, it didn't stop. Overnight and into rush hour. New York City grinding nearly to a halt.
This is time for heightened alertness and extreme caution.
States of emergency declared in New York and New Jersey, with major roadways flooded.
Oh my God.
Drivers in stalled cars had to be rescued in the city and its suburbs, along with several people living in basement apartments. The heaviest rain hitting neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Queens. Transportation has been a nightmare. One city bus braving a flooded street while passengers had no choice but get soaked. The rain impacting every subway line. Some shut down altogether. In train stations, water poured through grates, flowed downstairs, and even gushed straight out of the walls.
The trains weren't running because of flooding.
Commuter trains in and out of the city shut down. Hundreds of flights canceled. At JFK, it was the wettest day ever recorded, while at LaGuardia, an entire terminal had to be closed when rainwater poured into departures.
It was all bad, honestly. Like, you had water coming in all through the bathrooms, all through the entrance there.
Some areas could see 10 inches before it's all over. High-intensity rainfall like this, an effect of climate change. The conditions so bad it reminded many New Yorkers of the remnants of Hurricane Ida that swept in and killed 13 people 2 years ago. Many of the deaths then happening in basement apartments where flash floods caught families by surprise. The governor telling people today not to take any chances.
Leave your home if you're starting to see water accumulate. Don't wait until it's up to your knees or higher.
Tonight, another rush hour, and still, the rain has not stopped. Stephanie Gosk, NBC News, Brooklyn.
Also tonight, they tried and failed again today to come up with a deal in Congress to keep the government funded and running past tomorrow's midnight deadline, with millions of federal workers and many government programs threatened. Garrett Hake now with late details.
Tonight, the federal government on the brink of shutdown. The bill is not passed. 21 House Republicans joining with Democrats to defeat Speaker McCarthy's latest stopgap plan to keep the government open while slashing spending.
Look up the word dysfunction in the dictionary and you'll see United States Congress drawn to 1/43rd scale.
A handful of hardline conservatives demanding even more spending cuts.
The American people get screwed with more debt and more spending that they do not want.
Sparking Republican anger with just 1 day left to pass a spending bill and avoid a midnight shutdown Saturday.
They killed the most conservative position we could take and then called themselves the real conservatives, which is like, make that make sense. You can't make it make sense.
The speaker looking to shift blame if 3.5 million federal workers are forced to forego paychecks, though most will receive back pay when a shutdown ends.
Mr. Speaker, what do you say to federal workers who are worried about their paychecks? That this is a political gamble. They're worried about their
question. So I'm saying the Republicans in here are trying to keep the government open. It sounds like you think the Democrats are going to shut it down. I don't think government should shut down.
As President Biden warned of the impact on 2 million military families who will serve without pay.
We can't be playing politics while our troops stand in the breach. It's an absolute dereliction of duty.
Families like Jessica Manfres, her husband serves in the Coast Guard. Her message for lawmakers.
If you believe in this country, if you believe in the people that are willing to lay their lives down to defend it, then show us. Work together.
Garrett, you have covered Congress a long time. What are the chances they solve this by tomorrow's deadline?
Well, Lester, the chances are bad now, and they're getting worse by the hour. The House has no plan, and the Senate has already gone home for the night. The government shuts down at midnight tomorrow night, and Lester, lawmakers will still be paid in the event of a shutdown.
Garrett Hake, thanks. A shutdown of the federal government is not absolute. For example, while the VA says veterans' health care will not be impacted, some other VA services will be suspended and regional benefits offices will be closed. A shutdown would affect government programs many others depend on, including Head Start for low-income children and food assistance through WIC. And as for essential workers, including the millions who keep the country safely moving each day, they'll stay on the job but be forced to work without pay, as they did during the 2019 government shutdown. Tom Costello has that part of the story.
From the Border Patrol to the Coast Guard to food inspectors to the nation's airports,
Yet another government shutdown will hit the very people who keep the country safe, including 50,000 TSA officers who ensure planes are safe to fly. And 10,500 air traffic controllers, already understaffed and working 10-hour days, 6-day weeks. Controller errors have led to several close calls in the nation's skies this year. Now, the added stress of working without pay.
You can't not pay your mortgages. You can't not pay your car payments. You can't not pay your utilities. But the government is giving us zero balance paydays.
4 years ago, many TSA officers going without a paycheck started quitting so they could find a job that would put food on the table. Air traffic controllers, after about a month, started calling in sick. The 2019 shutdown finally ended when air travel was reduced to a trickle. Also affected this year, the nation's parks. NBC's Priscilla Thompson is at Big Thicket National Preserve in Texas.
Across the country, 423 national parks could be shuttered, meaning services from trash collection to bathroom cleaning and campground operations would all be halted.
While Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare will continue, passport processing will be further delayed. America's frontline workers and everyday Americans living paycheck to paycheck, again in the crosshairs of political brinkmanship, even as members of Congress continue collecting their pay. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
Dianne Feinstein, the longest-serving woman in Senate history and a role model for generations of women, has died at age 90. Andrea Mitchell reports on her life and legacy.
Tonight, tributes from both sides of the aisle for Dianne Feinstein, her desk draped in black, a vase of white roses, for a senator known for sending flowers to colleagues.
Today, there are 25 women serving in this chamber, and every one of them would admit they stand on Dianne's shoulders.
Her beloved home state of California and our entire nation are better for her dogged advocacy and diligent service.
The country's going to miss her dearly, and so will Jill and I.
And women senators for whom she painted watercolors.
Every time I would pass by, I would look at it and think about how talented Dianne was in so many different areas.
Feinstein's political career began in tragedy. November 1978, San Francisco Mayor George Moscone and Board of Supervisors member Harvey Milk were assassinated in City Hall.
Both Mayor Moscone and...
Let's back that up again.
In so many different areas.
Feinstein's political career began in tragedy. November 1978, San Francisco Mayor George Moscone and Board of Supervisors member Harvey Milk were assassinated in City Hall.
Both
November 1987. That was just right before the church scandal that occurred, and basically God moved up into my life towards me fasting and praying and completing the course of what I needed to complete at that particular time in sending 9 tapes to the White House in the month of March. So that was a bad event.
Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk have been shot and killed.
Cementing her lifelong commitment to gun safety. Elected San Francisco's mayor, she was on Democratic nominee Walter Mondale's shortlist for running mate before he chose Geraldine Ferraro.
I've had an opportunity now to be the first woman and the first mayor to be asked to go through an interview process. And I view that as a major opening of a door.
It was the public outcry over the all-male Judiciary Committee's grilling of Anita Hill at the Clarence Thomas hearings that got Feinstein to the Senate, where Judiciary Chairman Joe Biden made her the committee's first woman. She immediately led the charge to pass an assault weapons ban. As the first woman to chair the Intelligence Committee, she took on the CIA's waterboarding of prisoners, leading to the outlawing of the Bush administration's harsh interrogations. In later years, she showed signs of age and poor health, noticeably frail when returning to the Senate after an absence, but rallying, voting yesterday before a visit with former Congresswoman Jane Harman.
I went there because I miss her, and she's She's been voting as she always did.
Always opening doors for women.
Diane left us the way she lived, on her own terms. She knew what she wanted to get accomplished. She respected diversity of opinion. She was as bipartisan as they come.
Dianne Feinstein did it her way, always bipartisan, even if frustrating some Democrats, but true to herself. Lester.
Andrea Mitchell, thank you. Kristen Welker, moderator of NBC's Meet the Press, joins us now. Kristen, California's governor will have to make an interim appointment to replace Feinstein in some pretty tricky political waters.
That's right, Lester. The pressure's on California Governor Gavin Newsom to decide who will fill Senator Feinstein's Senate.
Let's go forward here.
With injections every 2 months.
Stelara may increase your risk of infections, some serious, and cancer.
Let's go up to here.
Not that it lasts for this long. Usually a tropical storm or just like crazy rain, but it doesn't normally last this long. But you know, we've had rain for days, so there's nowhere for it to go. The ground is completely saturated. We continue to follow the flash flood emergency across the Northeast and New York City. Torrential rain has lashed the already waterlogged region for hours today. Our AccuWeather teams continue to closely monitor the developing situation. Okay, when severe weather is expected, it's vital that you are alerted when severe storms are headed your way. That's why it's important to update your alert settings in the AccuWeather app. Christina Schaus walks you through the steps to make sure you and yours are safe when severe weather strikes.
When it comes to being prepared for severe weather, every tool you need is right here in the palm of your hand with the AccuWeather app.
Oh, come on, advertiser.
I think that's getting mixed up on the Democrat side.
Tragedy in San Francisco.
Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Harvey Milk have been shot and killed.
After the assassination, Feinstein was sworn in as the first female mayor of the city by the Bay. Mayor Feinstein quickly got the attention of the National Democrat.
We done seen that.
35% off your first order.
All right, let's go back up to here again. Maybe they're through with their advertising.
Storms. Always a pleasure, Christina. Thank you for that. Infrared satellite shows Rena and Philippe. Let's get straight into it. Philippe going into an area that's dry, wind shear out of there. And then Rena, well, that's a fish storm, but you will see it starting to lose intensity. Now, what I'm really focusing on, I've been talking about this for the past few days. Well, this system, we'll get into that, but look, we've got something subtropical. Some storms sitting over this area could bring something a low chance of development at the end of the month and the beginning of next month. But we are borrowing some moisture from Philippe. This one from next week, October 3rd to the 6th. And with the jet stream dipping as far south.
And in your yard, okay.
Stands in sharp contrast to the trend of stores closing in cities because of crime. Anderson vows that will not be a problem here.
If they see blight, they're going to do blighted things. If they see development, they see success, this is a community store, so the community shall protect it.
Self-protect.
Yes, self-protect.
That faith, that hope, drew the attention of Naira Jordan, who works for the social impact arm of American Family Insurance.
It's really important that we connect ourselves to the individuals in community. People in community that are closest to the issue are also the ones that are the innovators, the change makers that have the solutions.
As best as anyone can remember, it's more than 50 years since a new grocery was built near here.
What do you say to the naysayers? Come shop. I say come shop.
Harry Smith, NBC News, Waterloo, Iowa.
And that's Nightly News for this Friday. Join us Monday for my exclusive interview with outgoing Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
WPSD Local 6, your breaking news and weather authority. This is Local 6 at 6.
An attempted kidnapping of a child in a local neighborhood, then a separate incident just a few counties over, a woman charged with kidnapping a child. Tonight, the important conversation police say you need to have with your kids. So we told you last night, Ashley Braffiner faces kidnapping and wanton endangerment charges. That's after Carlisle County Sheriff's deputies say she took a 5-year-old boy to her Bardwell apartment Wednesday. He'd been playing outside. He is okay, back with family. Also on Wednesday in Goreville, Illinois, the Johnson County Sheriff's Department says a man attempted to abduct a 10-year-old girl.
People losing their minds.
We call this the Pacific Project. So we purchased homes and we started renovating South Cape.
People losing their minds.
That may have been misappropriated. News 3's Waylon Walls Parker went over there to talk to locals and officials to find out what's happening.
If you drive up to the entrance for Blue Heron Campground and Marina, you will see a temporary close sign. That's because the Crab Orchard Wildlife Refuge closed the campground down on Thursday, September 28th. Kevin Holderby says he usually goes to the lake a lot, and today was quieter than normal.
Oh, just a lot of activity with people. You hear dogs barking, a lot of people that come and go.
Justin Sexton is the refuge's manager. He says that Crab Orchard owns the campground and marina, but they contracted the operations for Blue Heron to its board members and shareholders.
We felt the need that we had to temporarily suspend their contract just while we're doing a fact-finding / investigation of these allegations.
Sexton says they are also looking into Blue Heron with the Williamson County Sheriff's Office for
only one reason. Because the fundamental essence of MAGA, Donald Trump's twisted version of
Well, that was a few hours ago. Joking. But now it's not many options left. And it's no laughing matter. A whole lot of Americans living paycheck
to paycheck.
Forrest Cooper, author and legal commentator. All right, Byron, let's start with you. Who's a really good
paycheck to paycheck?
Soaked, and in some spots we are still dealing with flooded streets. You might be able to see there's some water still racing across this road. This is from Prospect Park Lake. It filled up so much with so much water at this hour. It is still overflowing and spilling right onto the street. And when you look at some of the video from earlier today, some of these neighborhoods in Brooklyn just turned into a chaotic mess with all of this heavy rain. 5, 6, 7 inch plus rain reported throughout the region. Drivers were trying to get through some of the fast rising water, and we saw people that were wading through the dangerous and dirty water that was pouring into some basement apartment windows. We were over in Queens earlier. Some of the highways were just gridlocked and shut down by flooding, including this stretch of the Belt Parkway just north of JFK. 1 to 2 months worth of rain or more falling in just about a day, and some people admit they were caught off guard.
It has happened before, but not that it lasts for this long. Usually a tropical storm or just like crazy rain, but it doesn't normally last this long. But you know, we've had rain for days, so there's nowhere for it to go. The ground is completely saturated.
A very wet September here in New York, and a lot of cars were damaged today, many towed away. So buses and trains still running late. There were a number of lines that were shut down for hours today, so a lot of people getting home late from work.
I just want to touch base with my viewers that what you're seeing right now, what we've discussed, what I've discussed, what's going on pertaining to just some events just within the past, let's say 72 hours including the New Orleans deal down towards southern Mississippi. These are all events that we should not be having to deal with right now, that if things would have been handled properly, not only in Northwest Tennessee but in Washington, D.C., we would not be dealing with these problems because of the cover-up. And I was in that cover-up. I wasn't part of the cover-up. But a great deal of people in Northwest Tennessee was a part of that cover-up, as well as Washington, D.C., especially in the church sector, because of that cover-up and them trying to basically destroy the very messenger that's talking in behind the microphone right now for the past 30 plus years, since 1988. This fault falls upon the feet of Obion County, pertaining to Kenton, Tennessee, Weakley County, pertaining to Dresden, and Martin, Tennessee. Those was the primary people that was engaged in thinking that they was going to be able to cover up something, even though white man speaketh with forked tongue. They was talking about peace, but in reality, peace was far from them. They wanted chaos. They wanted anything but true agape peace. True, loving, holy, eternal, anointing peace. My message had been rejected again and again and again by various generations, 3 in total. Beginning in the late 80s, throughout the 90s, throughout 2000, throughout 2010, and now this is 20 and 10, and now this is 20 and 20. So I just want the record to show that because of what didn't happen that should have happened has helped to put not only America in this type of perils pertaining to our weather, the forces of nature, but it's also been a part of what is occurring all over the planet. So whenever you look at the state of Tennessee, please, please pray for me. Because I'm basically right up in the very corner right here, right there. I'm within about 35 miles of the Mississippi River, and I'm about probably 25 to 30 miles from the Kentucky state line. We live at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255. I basically live in a pole barn. I live in a barn. While I watch other people that has grown in intensity for the past 30 plus years, driving brand new trucks, brand new cars, living in conglomerate nice homes, paying for, a $250,000 tractors to $750,000 combines to $1 million cotton pickers, while I've sat back and watched people grow and become powerful. People like myself has been diminished, squashed, squandered, and in lots of cases even completely, totally ruined. And that's exactly what certain people intended to happen to the founder of the Windmill Ministries missions here at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255. But fortunately, God was on my side, thank God, with his mercy and love. And though I've got scars pertaining to what has occurred in my life for the past 30 plus years. At least I can tell my story. At least I can vent on what actually occurred and still have love in my heart towards those that actually done this. Those that either rejected this message by plugging up their ears and having stiff necks, or those that intentionally was attacking me in some form or fashion, or those that was sitting idly by that was allowing for me to be attacked. I have said this all along, that instead of the neighborhood around here being against me towards me coming back here in 2014, that basically drove my brother off into an early death, they should have been out here helping. They should have been out here trying to enhance the ministry and actually help to put myself in a better shape rather than tearing me down. They should have been in the process towards building one another up. They didn't want that. Then he felt like that they needed that. Okay? In other words, they didn't want to go out that way. All right? If you don't want to go out that way, we'll go out this way. Through fires, floods, famines, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and basically the earth regurgitating itself upon to society because of what society has done. And it's really horrifying to think that just probably a few thousand people was in behind this movement that has put all of us where we are right now today. And what, like I said, most of them was supposed to have been church, faith oriented. Because by and large, it wasn't the hobo, it wasn't the tramp, it wasn't the prostitute, it wasn't the homeless that stood up against Jesus Christ, but it was those that already had a form of belief that said to themselves, we're not going to submit to this. We're not going to submit to this man's teachings. And ultimately, in the end, Jerusalem, Israel, and that whole area basically turned into a bloodbath, which basically now you can times that probably about 1 million, that now is going to happen not just in one particular area, but now worldwide. Because every time an event like this happens, it strains the resources. You take people that had a bunch of food in their basement, furniture, carpet, mold, mildew, people being more prone of getting sick, people basically losing everything that they had, clothes, etc. And with people living on the edge of the way that they are right now towards basically paycheck to paycheck, this is just going to cause the strains of society to be strained that much even more. You know, I couldn't believe that Sweden up towards the UK had been going through what they've been going through. And of course, I'm just thinking this now, that this is my thinking, that whenever the Russian government first attacked the Ukrainians, it was something like the displacement of about 20 million people, if I'm not mistaken, that had to seek refuge in other countries. And I said this on the very front end. First of all, it was a very, very noble thing in what they done towards opening up their borders and letting those people in. But now, of the length of time that it has occurred, now it has strained other people's resources. It has strained other people's livelihoods. It has strained other people's finances to the degree that now they're suffering. And because they're suffering, compounded with the damages that's being done over there to the agriculture and to the grain and to the oil pertaining to the energy, one thing compounds up onto another thing that compounds up onto another thing, that if you'll put all of it into the equation at one time, regardless whether it's a madman or COVID that people still hadn't fully recovered from, especially some of these third world undeveloped countries, on top of now Mother Nature lashing out the way that she's lashing out, because basically they have disturbed the ecosystem below our feet and above our heads. And I still say, and I'll continue to say, that it's not the atmosphere above our heads that is causing the planet to warm up, but rather it is the planet that we're standing on that is getting hotter from the inside out, that is causing the atmosphere to become hotter. Science had it all in the wrong direction towards thinking that it was cows farting, or thinking that it was aerosol hairspray, or thinking that it was refrigerating R134 versus R12. They was on to something pertaining to the carbon dioxide gases, with all the automobiles spewing out all the gases pertaining to trying to eliminate that by putting catalytic converters on automobiles. It's got all the pellets in it. That was a good thing, but that's not what's causing the planet to heat up. If the planet was heating up the way that they claimed that the planet was heating up because of the ozone being broken down, in which the ozone broke down, don't get me wrong, all them damages is really significant and horrifying pertaining to what we're doing to the clouds and everything above the clouds. But what we're doing below our feet in regards towards all these underground, ocean floor volcanoes and etc. that are now expanding and just unbelievable, that you can go down into the ocean and there's certain parts where they call it the abyss or something like that, that as you get further down into the water, it actually warms up versus getting colder. So what's happening? We have disturbed the very entity that was put there for civilization to survive. It was put there for a shield. Oil was a shield to prevent from the heat expanding out to the outer layers. It was also put there for a friction reducer while you got all these platelets that's moving in, moving out, high tide, low tide, high moon, low moon, full moon, all this other stuff. You know, if you get to looking at the oceans and stuff, they're dying pertaining to the reefs. And basically the oceans are kind of like an intake system on an automobile, on a motor, pertaining to having a filter that can eliminate the bad stuff that could get into the rings and get into the valves and get into the upper parts of the motor that can be damaging to the motor if it goes into the internal combustion parts. So you got to look at the ocean with all the reefs and etc., and it being basically the same way. Well, whenever you're steadily using the ocean for a waste can, and you're steadily throwing stuff into the ocean like plastic, and we're draining all the oil from the ground that was put there for a reason other than for us to drive around and look pretty on Sunday with our top down with our cool sunglasses on. If you put all these things into the equation, it fits right into the very category of what Jesus said was going to occur in the last days, that as you shall see the days approaching, that no flesh shall be saved. But for the elect sect whom he has chosen, those days would be shortened. No matter how hard, no matter how strong, no matter how evil-minded that people could have been towards trying to make things that much more tougher on the messenger because they didn't like the message. The message has already been broadcasted by the Lord Jesus Christ, and everything that he has warned or given out advisories towards are now coming about on a hour-by-hour basis, coming near a neighborhood near you. I guarantee you, out of the 30 plus inches of rain that Houston got flooded with several different times, yeah, they may have covered it up. Yeah, they may have had spray to spray on the interior parts of the houses and stuff, but they didn't get it all. It creates black mold. Black mold creates all kinds of other problems pertaining to our respiratory problems and etc. And you could probably do some sort of an analogy or a study right now in the Houston Lyon areas, and you'll probably find today a whole lot more people that's sicker than what it was 5 years ago whenever all those rains hit down in that area. And the same way with Louisiana, same way with Jackson, Mississippi, are the prone areas where the hurricanes have hit. That even though it may not have completely totaled out your house still basically got drenched. You had to cut the majority of the sheetrock out and replace the carpet and all the other stuff in there. But every time an event like this occurs, it strains the resources. And it's horrifying to think that so many lives have been ruined because of hard-headedness and greed, because people was shouting at the top of their lungs 20 plus years ago. People like Al Gore, that people thought was crazy, such as myself, screaming at the top of my lungs that people by and large wanted to put me in a category towards being crazy. And it went from me being in the category that they wanted to put me in toward me being crazy to the point that then they changed their motives, they changed their tactics, and in 2005 is whenever they first started trying to make me out to be somebody that was a danger, like a homegrown terrorist, beginning right here in Wickett County, in Martin, Tennessee, in Dresden, Tennessee, pertaining to where our seat is. So everything that these people have tried to do to me have now backfired onto them. They wanted to declare me being mad, somebody that was psychologically, emotionally, chemically imbalanced. Now look at all the people all over America that truly are psychologically, chemically imbalanced pertaining to mental health issues. You don't think that that's come back and bit them in the butt? But now you get these same people that didn't want to support this ministry, you get them to admit to that, and you'd probably have better luck in pulling hen's teeth. That would be how difficult it would be for the people in this surrounding area towards coming clean and admitting that in which what they took a part of, or that in which what they didn't take a part of that they should have took a part of, that now they stand guilty. You get them same people to admit to that. And like I said, you'd probably have better luck in pulling hen's teeth.
People getting home late from work, and of course a lot of kids getting back home late from school because the buses and the trains running late. And Melissa, this storm brought back a lot of horrible memories from Hurricane Ida 2 years ago with that deadly basement flooding. We're being told this time around at this point, no reports of serious injuries or fatalities here in New York, but with all of the damage, with all this water, there is still a lot of heartache and still a lot of frustration with the situation.
There's so many people in that area that there's really no way that you're not going to get a fatality or two, because you'll have some people that are old, living down in a basement, asleep. Maybe they was peeled out on sleeping pills or whatever, or maybe they just couldn't comprehend, and basically all of a sudden here come this flood of water on top of them. I mean, it's going to take probably a few days before things dry out enough to where they can assess the situation towards just exactly how many lives that it did actually affect, and how putting a dollar bill, an actual monetary dollar bill attachment to it towards how much money is it going to cost basically the taxpayers in regards to trying to patch it up. But whenever we try to patch it up, and then we got an event like in New Orleans, and then we got all these other events with the hurricanes and the floodings and all the fires out west, and recently the fires out in Hawaii, and we can continue to keep patching these things up, but eventually, if you wear on the pillars long enough, strong enough, the whole shooting combine will come falling down. I mean, they want to point their finger at Donald Trump towards in 4 years' time, it costing the American taxpayer $7 trillion. Well, I think they're giving Donald Trump a little bit too much credit, because the deal that was already in motion pertaining to the Afghanistan war, and how that we retreated and got out of that area and left all that equipment over there, I'm sure that was part of the equation. COVID, all the fires out west, and all the storms and the flooding. We recently got hit 2 years ago, or a little bit over 2 years ago now, out in Waverly, Tennessee, that basically took out about a third of their town and killed over 20 plus people in flooding. We've seen the same thing again and again and again. We've seen it up in Hazel, Kentucky, where it basically come down the mountainside with these deluges and basically just ruined towns, ruined communities. And then if you'll compile that on top of all the tornadoes, and if you'll compile that on top of all the excess heat that's affecting the agriculture communities towards not being able to have near the yields that they ordinarily should have, it costs us money. It costs us resources. It puts people in harm's way. What has caused this? How do we assess this in putting all the dots together toward trying to figure out the core of origin? Well, the core of origin began right here in 1983, whenever I made a telephone call to the White House about the Antichrist, and ever since then, my life, personally, has been in shambles. Oh yeah, I've had some good spurts, but I've had a whole lot of bad ones. A whole lot of bad ones. Simply because of an individual that was trying to tell people to prepare, to get ready, that this is coming down the pike. This is coming, they're coming. And instead of being rewarded, I was punished. Same difference with Al Gore. Instead of Al Gore being rewarded towards trying to help the citizens in not just the state of Tennessee, but all over the country, he was punished. He was punished. He did not become a president after being with Bill Clinton for 8 years being vice president. So one thing adds to another thing that adds to another thing by putting all the dots together, going all the way back whenever 9 tapes went to the White House towards how that the corporate churches was not going to have somebody dictating to them the same way as the people that Noah was trying to help, that they'd made up in their minds, we're not going to listen to this guy, turn him off, he's crazy, he's a lunatic, He's lost his mind until God himself brought all the animals into the ark. And God himself shut the door, and it began to rain and rain and rain. Now we have seen other prophets of God that has been rejected the exact same way, including, and most definitely including, the Lord Jesus Christ. Because they just didn't stop up their ears with him. They wanted to take him out. And I've had so many people that wanted to do that to me. But they know because of our laws over here in America, they couldn't just come right out and just kill me. So they was trying to use other tactics in getting me disposed of towards either getting a doctor or a judge or both to compile together and say, well, this guy here, he's a lunatic. He's a danger to himself. He's a danger to society. We just need to put him into institutionalize him into a mental institution and keep him pilled up or isolated up to the point that he's slobbering all over his shoes and he don't know daylight from dark. You see, if I would have come forth in the 1800s or even part of the 1900s, they would have just done an lobotomy on me, and that would have been the end of it. They would have operated on me against my will, and they would have went in and cut 2 or 3 things going to my brain, and from then on I would have been basically a walking, talking zombie. Well, they wanted to do that with me chemically, and they can give you enough chemicals now that they can basically do a chemical lobotomy. Especially if you take the chemicals long enough, it will eventually affect certain parts of your brain and certain parts of your body. That's what they wanted to do to me beginning in 1983 whenever I went to a little town for help after I know that my life had been threatened. And the type of help that they wanted to give me, because I was talking about the end time events, was let's seduce him with Thorazine. That way we won't have to worry about this individual no more. Let's get him out of open population. That way we won't have to worry about this individual no more. And I've had that happen to me routinely again and again and again. So you can't tell me that the works of the devil has not been trying to destroy the anointing that God placed upon Dennis Jackson. It ain't got nothing to do with Dennis Jackson other than the anointing was placed upon Dennis Jackson towards Dennis James Jackson, known as Juby, being a messenger. Well, they wanted to get rid of the messenger. They didn't like the message. Well, if we get rid of the messenger will go away. No, the message ain't going away. As you can see, it's only getting worse, and it will continue to get worse until people start listening and start doing the proper right things, beginning right here in Northwest Tennessee. And if not, there's going to be a lot of people, my friends, that's going to give an account for all this, pertaining to all the souls that has wound up going to hell because of certain people that was dead set that they was going to try to destroy the messenger because they didn't like the message. I can't say it plain enough. It says in the Bible that Satan will come down in great wrath because he knoweth, or it knoweth, that his time is short. We have created this atmosphere by the world warming up, and now the atmosphere is hotter. It holds more moisture. The moisture goes up higher, and then whenever it does release it, it releases it in the form of a deluge. Look at what's happened to Afghanistan. Look at not Afghanistan, but Pakistan. Look at what happened to other countries out there that is basically either went through extreme fires or extreme floods. These are all what Jesus Christ said, that whenever you shall see these things occurring, to know that we are at the doors. Plus, Jesus Christ said that whenever you shall start to see these things, to flee into the mountains. He wasn't telling the people to flee into the mountains just to go up there and enjoy themselves. He was telling the people to go up into the mountains because of all the forces of nature that was going to be responding in a crucial bad way, and plus to get away from the people, to get away from all the bad stuff going on in those cities. Because I guarantee you, since they've been hit once and now they've been hit again, there's going to be people that's going to have such of a raw attitude. It's going to take their aggression out on other people and in blaming God. And the whole time, it wasn't God. It was the devil. It was the work of the very things that they worship in New York City. Because there's hardly nowhere that you can go in New York City that there's not some kind of a satanic, demonic church somewhere where they pray to the Luciferian Lucifer. So now they're getting a dose of their own medicine. But I guarantee you, they'll be blaming God. Rather than blame themselves or blame the very entity that they've been praying to, they'll blame God. It just shows you how much that Satan has brainwashed these people and how that these people have been bamboozled, been brainwashed. Good luck to all of us. God bless. Want to pray for all the victims, all the people that's going through what they're going through. Because I'm telling you, it's coming near a neighborhood near you. And if it hasn't affected you by now, it soon will, either directly or indirectly. All we can do at this point in time is pray. And just like the Bible talks about whenever he's talking in the first part of Revelations, to go back, go back, go back, go back, go back, and do thy first works over again. God bless. God bless America, and God bless our troops. Shalom.